places have gone and the places I rearranged. If you could read my mind, you know it's a crying shame. And I'm here to say something lost is something gained. So spend some time on the bright side. Just take a ride till we find some daylight. It's a crime to use your hindsight. So take your time. We're coming back from yesterday.
On November 8, 1602, the Spanish navigator Sebastian Vizcaíno spotted some islands off the coast of San Diego and named them Los Coronados, or in English, the Crowned Ones, after 4 martyred saints of ancient Rome whose death had been on that same calendar day. Today, Coronado Island is known as the Crown City and is definitely a town of royal quality. Although technically a peninsula, everyone calls Coronado the island, and as you drive around, you'll notice the place is like a movie set straight out of Hollywood. The neighborhoods consist of beautiful homes and tree-lined streets, and it seems like there's a park around every corner. I mean big, beautiful parks. Parks with cannons, just like the movies. I even checked the street gutters. No trash. Actually, no dirt. Now, this made me very suspicious. But the fact of the matter is, Coronado Island is a beautiful little town. But it wasn't always like this. Back in 1884, 36-year-old Elisha Babcock Jr. came to San Diego from Evansville, Indiana. While in San Diego, Babcock befriended another Midwestern transplant, H.L. Story, of the Story and Clark Piano Company in Chicago. The two would row their boat more than a mile across the bay from San Diego to the wild, uninhabited Coronado Peninsula, where they would hunt jackrabbits, cottontails, and quail. During one hunting trip, they sat and looked across the flat, barren land and began to dream of the possibilities offered by this unique stretch of real estate. The dream was to build a beautiful resort, one that would attract visitors from around the world. So, in 1885, Babcock and Story formed a syndicate called the Coronado Beach Company. The goal was to buy the peninsula and develop it into a city. From the profits of this enterprise, the two could build their magnificent resort. Later that year, when the first transcontinental railroad opened the way to the west, the two men made their move and purchased the entire Coronado Peninsula for $110,000. To attract buyers, they quickly cleared the sagebrush, streets were laid, and trees were planted. A transportation system consisting of ferry boats and steam engine trains were set in place, and water was piped in from San Diego's Old Town. The promotional campaign to sell Coronado had begun. In November 1886, some 6,000 people lined up for a free lunch and a free boat ride across the bay to hear the sales pitch and a chance to invest in a new community. Lots were selling for $500. The terms, 1/3 down with the balance due in a year at 10% interest. No discounts were given for cash. That doesn't sound half bad. Just as Babcock and Story had hoped, the sale was a huge success, and construction began on their dream resort. Materials and labor were scarce in San Diego at the time, so it's amazing to see a photo like this. A large number of unskilled laborers, along with master carpenters, plumbers, and other craftsmen, were brought in from San Francisco, Oakland, and other points north and east. Finding enough workers was also a challenge because many laborers were unwilling to work on a project that soared 10 stories high and basically depended on simple ladder climbing and rope and pulley methods of construction. I wanted to find out more about Babcock and Story's dream resort, so I thought I'd pay it a visit. Today, the hotel is as beautiful as ever. Built entirely of wood, and in the 1800s, it was completed at a cost of $1 million. The The Hotel del Coronado is one of the last remaining Victorian seaside resorts. When you enter the hotel, you know you're someplace very special. In the lobby, I met Chris Donovan. Chris is the hotel's historian and was nice enough to share some great information about the hotel's history.
After the money was raised, they could begin building the hotel, but they wanted to build it quickly. So actually, it was pretty much designed as it was being built. There were some architects brought in, again from the Midwest, and they were working on the plans of the hotel as the foundation was being dug and the first part of the hotel was being built. And in February of 1888, they opened the hotel after only 11 months of construction. So they really proceeded very quickly. Unfortunately, one of the reasons they were building at such a rapid rate was because there was a depression in San Diego, and they wanted to get the hotel built and occupied before the Depression, but that was not to be the case. And the Depression really knocked the bottom out of the housing market here in San Diego. And very early on, Babcock and Story ran into financial difficulties. And John D. Spreckles came aboard to take over the running of the hotel and eventually the ownership of it.
Chris even showed me the hotel's archive room, where we spent some time looking through boxes and boxes of old photos. It was great to see some of the famous people that have visited the Del, movie stars, presidents, and even movie stars that became presidents. In 2001, the hotel completed a 3-year, $55 million restoration. Throughout the entire process, the restoration team worked closely with historic architects to protect the Del's fragile beauty and maintain the hotel's historic integrity. As Chris and I continued to look through photos, I happened to come across this one. She said it was called Tent City.
In 1900, John D. Spreckles decided that they should market to the middle class, which was an emerging segment of American population. Previously, these people had not vacationed, but now they were starting to vacation for a day or a couple days or a week. So Tent City was developed for this emerging middle class. It provided very modest tent accommodations by the day, by the week, by the entire summer. Eventually, Tent City became a year-round destination where there were tents, eventually little permanent bungalows. There was a pool there, a merry-go-round. It had its own hotel, its own newspaper. Really? It was really a self-contained little Coney Island type vacation destination.
It was amazing to see this photo of Tent City where the trolley came right on through. Chris said it actually started at the ferry landing located at the foot of Orange Avenue. Orange Avenue is the main street that runs through the middle of Coronado. At one time, orange trees lined the street, which is how it received the name Orange Avenue, and the train and trolley came right down the middle of the road. Today, Orange Avenue has a slightly different look to it. For me, it's one of my favorite things about Coronado. The area where the train used to run has been replaced with beautiful trees, grass, and flowers. Orange Avenue also is a great place to stroll. The sidewalks are lined with shops and restaurants, and the area as a whole has a cool, nostalgic feel to it. While hanging out one day, a longtime resident told me about a ship that wrecked on the shore of Coronado back in the 1930s. So